Hey, everybody. Welcome in Gorilla Sports Off Ice Friday edition. We got game one of the playoffs tomorrow. Should be a great show. I'm Jesse Montano. Going to be joined by Meghan Angley in just a moment. But I do want to remind you guys about our great friends over at Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted Americans, salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you lower your interest rate and get a better monthly payment. Go to trustedamerican.com right now to see how much money they can help you start saving today. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome in Gorilla Sports Off Ice Friday edition, playoff edition. Meghan edition. It's whatever edition you want it to be. Meghan, it is snowy and gross outside, but I could not be more excited. We got playoff hockey tomorrow. How you doing?
I was just about to say, nothing can bring me down from this feeling. We are finally on the doorstep of playoff hockey. You asked Jared Bednar if it felt like Christmas Eve, and it certainly feels that way to me and to him based on how he answered your question.
Yep.
It's the best time of year. This is such meaningful hockey that we're about to embark on. And this has been a long time coming for the Avs building up this team, especially post-deadline. And I don't feel like we ever got to see it fully healthy all at once. We saw glimpses of what it was capable of. Now they get to put it to the test.
Yeah, it's we're going to get into that. The numbers that were on the ice for the Avs today. And yeah, it just, I was upstairs talking with some of the other Gorilla folks here, and we got to be at the airport really early tomorrow. We got, a lot of us in media got stuff booked a few weeks ago before the schedules came out because prices were cheaper. So, you were kind of taking a chance, maybe having to change stuff around. So, we've got a really early flight tomorrow. But I was just telling everyone upstairs, like, yeah, when my alarm goes off at 3:30, it's not going to be fun. Like, I'm definitely going to be like, oh, man. But as soon as I get in the car and, like, start making my way towards the airport, I just, having done this before, like, I already know I'm just going to be ready to get there, ready to get things going. This is it. This is the time of year. This is why we do this job. This is why, you're a fan of sports, hockey in particular. It's this time of year, and I'm really excited. Is there anything that you are looking most forward to here in the first round? Just getting going. I mean, like, we're going to get into, like, all the hockey stuff on the ice, but just playoffs wise, is there anything in particular that's like, oh, I love those moments?
Here's a unique thing about playoffs. Well, for one, we all get to travel, and more media will be traveling, and it's such a fun time to grow closer with not just the local Avs media, who I have a really good relationship with, but you just get to go even closer. You get to go to lunches and dinners together. We're already planning a family dinner on Easter Sunday with some of the other Avs media, and opening it up to maybe some of the Dallas media or national media that will be there. And so it's such a great time to meet other hockey minds that you don't necessarily get to talk to throughout the regular season as much. And it's really cool to get to know those people on a deeper level over the course of playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm with you. I really like just hanging out. It's, I know you did competitive sports growing up. I don't know how much you traveled for it, but like this is the closest thing that I feel like we get to, when I was growing up, traveling for hockey tournaments, and everyone's in the same hotel and everyone's on the same flight. Yeah, you go out to dinners, and it's people that you don't normally travel with, hang out with, in those types of settings. And then my other thing is just, it's just the atmosphere and the energy that's in the building for playoff hockey. That is unlike anything, anything. NBA playoffs, the Super Bowl, the World Series, they're all great events, but none of them even come close to being able to touch what the Stanley Cup playoffs are like in terms of atmosphere and intensity and all that. So I love getting into the building. It's the only time of year where I like to be there 90 minutes ahead of time and, an hour ahead of time, just because I like to be in there and soak up everything about the building.
You can feel tingles being in
Mhm.
that environment. I remember Winnipeg being surprised by
Yeah.
how loud that fan base is. It feels electric. And similarly, we'll be starting off in Dallas this time around, but Dallas had a really interesting in-arena presentation and theme for their playoff run. It was very
Interesting is the nicest way I've heard someone put
it was, kind of the alien invasion extraterrestrial theme.
But also AI,
But
it was
also
yeah.
AI, yes. And so I'm very curious to see what they do this year.
Oh man. I'm actually in this group chat right now texting Evan and Corey back because Evan sent a picture of that craziness from last year. And so
Aw. Why am I not in the group chat?
You are. Maybe you should check your phone more often.
I'm sorry, I'm doing a show right now. I'm just not on my phone.
Trying to throw us under the bus. Megan, let's get into it. It's a busy day. You and I got to get out of here and get packed.
Yeah.
You've got an additional meeting that I don't have, which is nice. It's nice that someone else has an extra meeting on their calendar.
You can come.
But then we also have a big all hands meeting. We had a lot to do today before we can get to the playoffs. But before we get to all that other stuff, Megan, we are here to park some time to finish unpacking a little bit more of this series. And honestly, good thing we didn't unpack everything, because there have been some new developments just in the last couple of days in terms of who might be available for each of these teams. Let's start with Dallas. We're going to have plenty to get into, plenty to unpack, excuse me, for the Avs after you and I were just at Family Sports, heard from Jared Bednar, got to watch the last practice before playoffs officially get going tomorrow. We'll have plenty to talk about for the Avs. Let's start with the Dallas Stars on whatever that was, Tuesday. We talked a lot about Miro Heiskanen. When could we potentially see him available? Megan, you made the point of hey, look, we might get into the back half of this series or even the back half of these first 4 games, and they might be willing to activate him, interested in getting him going. He did skate again today on his own, but there has been a little bit more come out this week. Chris Johnston, Sportsnet, did report, right now, or Chris Johnston, TSN, right now, the Stars are really kind of coasting on hopes and dreams that Miro Heiskanen might get back. Have you heard anything different here in these last couple of days? Like I said, Heiskanen was on the ice ahead of practice today.
Yeah, I think too, that was the new word development at the time that hadn't really begun to take place yet. And it was that first step that would warrant any hope or optimism around a possible return in the first round. So I remain cautious, though, because of Chris Johnston's report that it was relying squarely on hope that he make an appearance in the first round. And I think at this point, we're kind of gearing up for previewing games 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. Past that is where I think there's room for Heiskanen and a return. And so I won't factor it too much into the early part of this series preview because it's such an unknown at this point. It's a huge blow to Dallas, and that part isn't particularly new. But now with more injury news on top of it, it becomes a bit concerning. I can see online that the reaction within the fan base is definitely a bit concerned, and I think it's a testament to how important Heiskanen is to that back end. But now with more injury news on top of it, with Jason Robertson and a question around his availability, that hurts them pretty big up front. Yeah,
Tyler Seguin comes back for game 82. So if you're the Dallas Stars, you're like, awesome, we got a guy back in time for the last game. But look, we saw the Avs sitting guys. We saw teams around the league sitting some of their top players as those last couple games played out. Games that maybe didn't mean very much standings wise. The Dallas Stars chose not to do that. And as you alluded to, Megan, Jason Robertson left the game with a lower body injury, was seen leaving the arena in a knee brace. And one of the reports said he looked like he was even still wincing a bit in pain. Well, Pete DeBoer did come out today and say that Jason Robertson is listed as week to week at best. All he would officially rule him out for was game 1. But Megan, I was just on the radio here in Denver and I said, look, I'm no mathematician. Week to week, we're only 1 week out from game 4.
Right.
And if Jason Robertson is week to week, that tells me that he's probably in that same boat that you were just kind of laying out for Heiskanen, where let's get to game 4 and then we can maybe revisit this conversation.
That's how it feels. Is there's kind of, I don't know how long this series will go. I think Dallas, even without Heiskanen and Robertson, is going to put up a fight. So I'm not imagining some 4-game sweep for Colorado. This is so clippable if that happens. Also, timestamp that.
Yeah.
But
10-21, Chloe.
It is interesting because I'm putting both of these players in that category where they would be fighting for a push back late in this series if they can push it late. And that's going to be kind of what we get into here with some of the pieces that still remain for Dallas and make it a competitive lineup, because we talked about their forward depth on the whole. Losing one top 6 forward is a huge blow, but there is still a lot of depth up front for the Dallas Stars.
Totally. It definitely does throw into a little bit of question of, you know, how deep can they roll 4 lines with the Avs now as one guy comes out? You know, it does change the way that those bottom 2 lines look, but
like a Val Nichushkin being unavailable to the Avs.
Correct. Where, yeah, it's one player coming out, but you do have to make some other moves. But you're right, Megan. Like, you and I talked earlier in this week about, like, Dallas's depth is what's going to keep them in this series where they don't have the top end talent. It's how they beat the Avs last year, et cetera, et cetera. Jason Robertson's a significant piece, always seems to play well against the Avs. That's a real piece coming out of your lineup, and it does just disrupt that a bit. Now, here is one thing I will say, because I'm with you. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a sweep. I do think that the Avs have a real opportunity here, though, Megan, to go into Dallas and jump on this series early.
Yes.
And steal at least one game in Dallas. If not, the Jason Robertson thing, I think, has at least opened the door that the Avs, if they go out there, and we're going to get into the Avs and who's available to them and what they are going to need to do in this series. But if they do the things that they need to right, there's a chance that they can go in there and really get out to a fast start in the series coming back home.
Yeah. You know, NHL players don't need much to get motivated for playoff hockey, but the Avs have been given some intriguing boosts here in the final hour ahead of game 1 between Gabe Landeskog and the update that we'll get to with him coming up. And it's not a particularly new one. He's been around this group now, ramping up in his return to play, obviously gets in games with the Eagles and has a goal and assist in their comeback win this past weekend. So things are looking really great on that front. And then the day-to-day guys returning to near full health for the Avs, pointing to a near fully healthy lineup come game 1. There's a lot to get excited about, but then you add in this opportunity to jump on a weakened Dallas team, and Jared Bednar has used the word killer instinct. And when the Avs falter a bit, especially in the regular season, you can usually point to a lack of killer instinct and its ability to put away games early and to not let up off an opponent's neck. I know that sounds crazy dramatic, but
it's
the Avs have a good postseason record on the road against Dallas specifically, an 11-8 in general in playoff series against Dallas. And so the Avs have played pretty well on the road too. I think in the playoffs too, just like looking back at the 2022 season, they had a pretty good road record then too. I think it's something that brings them together as a group. There's a lot of closeness already there, but I think they get excited about the possibility of stealing 1 on the road or stealing 2 on the road, coming up 2-0 in the series back to Ball Arena in front of the home fans. Like, that's certainly an aim and a door of opportunity open for them now, looking at Dallas being a bit more vulnerable and weakened with some of these injury news.
Yeah, it's like you said, there's a lot that the Avs have to do. They only lost 1 game on the road en route to the Stanley Cup in 2022. And I remember them talking about that last year in Winnipeg of like, no, we kind of like this to get like, it almost kind of takes the pressure off those first couple games of having to put on a show in front of your home crowd. It's like, no, we get to go in here and be the spoiler. We get to go be the villain and try to take games out of there and reclaim home ice. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a galvanized group. And then Megan, you know, I was telling folks upstairs, like, you could feel the intensity in the locker room today. There weren't a ton of guys in there by the time we got in, but Josh Kroenke was down at the practice facility and addressed the team after practice as a whole. Jared Bednar had a message for the group. And when we got in there, like, you know, we talked to EJ, who's, you know, usually a little bit lighter and keeps things, you know, funny and cracks jokes, and you could just feel the intensity, even on him. And I just think that this is a group that understands the opportunity they have. It's a veteran group that is not going to be rattled by much. And then especially if you get that Gabe Landeskog boost back to whatever extent you do, that's just going to be another presence that's going to help them, on this run. So, anything else on Dallas in terms of news that's kind of new? We know Jake Ottinger in net is going to be a problem for the Avs. Matt Duchene always plays well against the Avs. Mikko Rantanen, talked today saying, yep, it's going to be weird, but we'll get out there. He's going to be a factor in this series. What else do you got on Dallas that maybe we've learned this week, or are you good? You want to move on to the Avs?
I do want to move on to the Avs, and I kind of want to save some time to go side by side at some point.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Well, so let's jump over to the Avs and what we saw today out at practice.
I wanted to talk about the excitement. Just one second.
Yes.
I thought it was really wholesome that Jared Bednar had to come out twice and bang on the glass to get Jack Drury, Sam Malinsky, and Keaton Middleton off the ice.
Mm-hmm.
They had a plane to catch, but to me, it read as guys who haven't really had a taste of playoff hockey very much. Like, I know Drury has gotten in some postseason games, but Malinsky, Middleton, it'll be their first taste of NHL playoff hockey. And I think, to me, that was a reflection of their excitement. They're working hard, and they're just trying to perfect the last-minute touches before they take off on the road. And it was endearing to me, the palatable excitement around the team, the fact that they had to be yanked off the ice to catch a flight.
I was about to yank them off the ice, Megan, because I knew there was a meeting that they were having to start, and I was like, we can't go into the meeting, and all these guys are getting changed out. Jack, let's go off the ice. We're trying to get in here. So I was about ready to yank them off the ice too.
But it's wholesome. That's a good problem to have. They just want to work too hard.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this week in general, you've been able to feel it kind of ramping up. But today I felt there was a palpable energy around the stands were packed of fans watching Avs practice. And leading us to our first update, the ice was packed as well. 5 lines of forwards out there and 4 pairings of defensemen out there. Nobody in a non-contact. At least for today, the Avs have had everybody available to them at practice, Megan.
Yeah.
Got to be the first time all year.
Yeah. 49 different players skated in an Avs uniform this year. To have everybody attending this practice and staying for the full length of it is pretty dang huge, especially because it sounds like there's still guys who maybe don't feel 100%, but pretty near to it. And it is significant then, because we have a fuller picture even of lines, just line by line. I'm not going to lock it in and say the projected lineup that we discuss is the exact one, but we have an idea of how Colorado's top 6 is going to be looking going into game 1. And I feel really great about it, for one.
Well, and I do think Jared Bednar is never going to be one to give a lot for lines and things like that in the playoffs. But I think we've been able to glean enough from these last couple of days, to your point, that I'm actually pretty confident in saying I'm not expecting Gabe Landeskog to play tomorrow.
I am not either, just based upon jersey colors, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
I still feel attached to this possibility that he just rotates in on that third line wing. And it's a way to sort of manage his minutes and games by not expecting him to be there every game. And similarly, like a Kiviranta, if that's the guy, it's been the spot on wing that's been rotated out through this point. So I know this became kind of a heated discussion in the media room. And that's the only case for it. It's not because of anything that Kiviranta has done. That's just what I'm speculating. And in part because he was dealing with a lower body injury at the end of the year. Right. He might benefit from also having game on, game off.
Well, and I also just go back to the last time the Avs made a deep run, and not only made a deep run, but had a team deep like this one. It was not on the 4th line where we saw the players rotating in and out. Jared Bednar left that 4th line pretty much intact the entire playoff run. guys were cycling in, and that team was so deep that guys were cycling in and out on like the second line. Like Andre Burakovsky was getting healthy scratch. But like that's where I'm going off of why I agree with you and think it would be Kivy that, I think Kivy Ronta might play tomorrow, and then Gabe might play in that spot on game 2. Just because we've seen Jared Bednar deploy his lines like that before and his scratches like that before. So something to keep an eye on. But Megan, Gabe Landeskog did once again today take the whole practice, and he's got a line assignment. And now today he got on and took some special teams reps. When we talked to Jared Bednar after practice and said, someone asked, where do you think Gabe is at? And he said, he's really close. He's an option for us all of round 1. What are you seeing in Gabe?
Yeah, he has been an option in my eyes ever since Saturday night in Loveland. And to see him get a couple reps on the second unit is significant because it was no joke when the Eagles tried him out on their power play. I don't know that Gabriel Landeskog will be getting any reps on the PK. It's just not necessary. But
right.
They don't put him there in practice for no reason. And so having him start to get those reps points to realistic usage, because it would be a waste. There's other forwards, if they're planning to play them, that they could have on that second unit getting those reps in.
Yep.
It's significant. And I have felt he's ready to get back into action and see how he's feeling ever since Saturday in Loveland, like I said. So it's just a matter of the timing then, because they do have pretty set lines 1 through 4. It's not a necessity. It's only meant to be then a boost to that third line is where I'm projecting, just because of how much Jared Bednar has been consistent in loving that fourth line. I'm putting Gabe with some, sheltered use on that third line, and I think he's ready to help it.
I'm with you. I think he's ready to help, and I think him, like you said, taking the special teams reps today, like that to me was the last kind of like, yeah, he's gonna go. Like, we need to get him ready to be able to jump in and contribute. And one of the first things I said to you after the second game up in Loveland was, I said, he can do that. He can stand in front of the net and tip pucks as he does now that Joe Pavelski's retired, maybe better than anyone in the league. And I think he can contribute in that role. And so I think right now the way that they're handling it is spot on. Giving him those kind of more limited reps and ease him in. He missed 3 years. To your point just now, Megan, like, you've got a deep enough team. You've got your line set 1 through 4. Chris McFarland built this team as if Gabe wasn't going to be back. So no need to rush. Get him in there when you feel it's right, when you feel it's most comfortable. I think even having him around is going to be a big boost for them if he doesn't play tomorrow. Like, having him as like an actual healthy scratch, not injured, not LTIR, just having him around, I think is going to be a boost. And then that first game where he jumps back in is going to be huge for them. But it just adds to the options that feel like the list is just ever growing.
The other thing that makes me feel a confidence that he'd be a good fit on that third line is what he evaluated his performances on Friday, Saturday in the conditioning stint with the Eagles. And it wasn't how much he could contribute through scoring. It was whether or not he was attacking, battling for pucks, and getting the puck out of his own end and breaking up plays and being responsible defensively. And he admitted that the timing and the touches, he wasn't happy with his feel for it after game 1, but it was immediately approved even by game 2, just because there's a really elite NHL player brain still inside of Gabriel Landeskog. And so I think it's just been a matter of getting more and more of these reps in, and that's what he's been building up to this entire time. And so when I see Gabe help to bring the game back within 1 that Saturday against Henderson, it's because he wins a battle along the wall. And that's exactly what anybody playing on that third line with a Coyle, with a Colton, is going to need to be doing. And similarly, all those players have decent speed. And so that's going to be the other aspect that Gabe will need to be able to keep up with them to truly help that line. And I think he's in a better place now than he was even a day ago. It just feels like every single day, the progress that he makes is so huge. And so, based on hearing him talk about how he's evaluating his own game, I think it's to better prepare himself to help in a third line role with players like Coyle and Colton, kind of specifically.
Well, and you just said something that kind of sparked a thought for me, and people that, and I haven't seen like a ton of this conversation, but there are people that are worried about his, production. Will he be able to chip in? And I think if you're putting him in that role, you want him to go out there and create energy, get your team going, lay a hit, get in on the forecheck. And I think that's all stuff that he's going to be able to do and help be a part of that. Like someone had in the chat, a Colton, Landy, and Coyle line. Like that would just be an absolute nightmare to play against as a third line. And if you can get him up to that point where that's the group that you're rolling with every night on that third unit, like you said, he's going to be able to win battles. He's going to go to the front of the net. I think he's going to help a guy like Charlie Coyle by going to the front of the net and getting in the goalie's eyes. And then I think he's going to help a guy like Ross Colton who puts pucks to the net. Well, you're going to have someone there who's going to be able to clean them up and battle in front of the net. I actually think in a weird way, that spot might just be perfect for him in general. And I just want to keep retouching on the point that you just made about the brain. He is an elite hockey player. The knee just had 3 years off and it forced him to take 3 years away from the game.
Right.
This is an elite hockey player who, when we last saw him, was at the height of his powers. It's going to take a little bit for him to get ramped back up. And I'm not even saying that he's going to get back to that, but there's still a very good hockey player there, even having missed 3 years.
Yeah, this is maybe not the best analysis, but even seeing him winning draws on the power play up in Loveland and thinking about how much prep goes into preparing for the face-off battle ahead of a game. You look at the centers opposite you, like the Avs will give their centermen film to watch.
Yeah.
Here's what lines 1 through 4 look like. Here's kind of their habits at the face-off circle. I am just assuming that Gabriel Landeskog didn't have access to this type of material ahead of the Henderson series for the Colorado Eagles. And so to see him winning those battles off pure instinct and just being good at the dot gives me this confidence that so much of hockey for Landeskog is instinct, and it's good instinct because he's a smart player. And I don't have to just point to the Henderson series to know that about Landeskog. Work of him being good at hockey that I can point to reinforce this point. And I look at what you just said about the ways that players like Coyle and Colton can help Gabriel Landeskog. And I think it's true. I think Colton, great teammate, big energy guy, is just going to be galvanized by having a player like Landeskog on his line and is going to want to feed him pucks at the net front or get pucks on net, like you said, and Gabe can position himself to tip them in. But similarly, I think that Gabriel Landeskog will have a positive effect on both those players, to include Ross Colton, who I think his game was just a little bit quiet to end the season. And I think it, alongside Coyle, has been this dam that's been waiting to break. And I like the way that they create together. But I feel like Gabriel Landeskog can elevate that line as kind of this missing piece that I am excited to see the influence that Gabriel Landeskog will have on a player like Ross Colton.
So all Kiviranta jokes and stuff aside, we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm not trying to just yeet Kiviranta out of the
but I mean, even coming out of the deadline, is this not the conversation that we had of like, man, I'd really like to just see one more player for that third line to give Kivy that fourth line, and you can have him and Kelly kind of be this road. Like that was what we talked about. So I'm with you. It's nothing against 16-goal Kiviranta, but it just has felt like, man, if you could get Gabe on that third line with Ross Colton, Charlie Coyle, that's the perfect mix. I also think, adding on top of everything that you just said, I think there is just like an energy about Ross Colton that's going to fit really well with Gabe Landeskog coming back.
Energy.
There's just an energy to it. And then not that Ross Colton is he's not going to drop the gloves every game and things like that, but he's going to mix things up. He's going to get in guys' face if there's something that he sees that he doesn't like being done to Gabe. Like, I just think that there's, I'm just picturing Gabe Landeskog scoring his first goal back and celebrating with Ross Colton and what that would look like. And that's, I know that's a silly thing to base like chemistry off of, but there's just something about like Ross Colton loves to play hockey.
Yes, and no one's happier for his teammates than Ross Colton.
Yeah. And that's where I'm going with it. I'm just going to play it. It's 1 minute, just real quick. It's a clip from yesterday, or excuse me, 2 days ago, Megan. And this, you used the word speed a second ago of Gabe Landeskog being able to keep up with those guys. And this was a video that I got 2 days ago that just made me say, yeah, this guy's ready to go. Can't simulate game action, but that's a lot of what the Avs have tried to do this week is, get guys in 5-on-5, 5-on-4 situations. And Megan just, again, we saw him up in Loveland. We saw him back in a game situation, but the burst of speed, battling along the wall, like I just looked at that and said, hey, look, maybe he's not going to come in and immediately be the 30-goal guy that he was before he went out of the lineup 3 years ago. But that looks like a guy who's ready to play NHL hockey.
Yeah, I think to the overtime period in the Eagles-Henderson game on Saturday, and Gabriel Landeskog had at least 2 instances where he used his speed to beat a player up ice, gain entry, and create some kind of opportunity. And it was encouraging because from start to finish that weekend, speed was a concern at the start. Mm-hmm. But by the end of it all, and seeing him in that overtime period, keeping in mind it's the second game in a back-to-back for a player who's missed nearly 3 years of hockey, I was really impressed and encouraged by his speed in OT specifically. So that alleviated a lot of concern, and seeing him just continue to ramp it up in practice, that's where I say every day Gabriel Landeskog gets better. Like to say I feel better about him today than I even did yesterday, it's because the progress he's making is kind of rapid in that sense. And it's just a matter of opportunity to get more and more of these reps under his belt. And it's not that he's a quick learner, right? It's just returning to his true form. Yeah. And it's pretty easy for him to do because I think he's a hockey player to his core.
Well, we don't necessarily think he'll play tomorrow. Jared Bednar did tell us today he's an option.
We know that everything ratchets up in the postseason. Have you seen enough from Gabe to say he's up to speed for postseason?
He's close. He's getting close. Obviously, every day I feel like he's getting a little quicker and a little bit more confident, a little more sure of himself. But he'll be an option for us in this series.
So there you go. He's an option starting tomorrow. And Jared Bednar echoing your sentiments there, Megan, of getting better every single day. We'll be keeping an eye very closely on this one as we move into game 1, game 2 in Dallas. We'll be there on the ground, making sure you guys are staying up to date on all that. Megan, let's get a couple other quick updates. Ryan Lindgren, Josh Manson, Jonathan Drouin, all guys who missed really the last part of the season there. All 3 of those guys have taken part in practice this week. Ryan Lindgren today finally did stay on for the entire practice instead of leaving after about 15 minutes, which is what we saw him do a couple days ago. Josh Manson looks good to go. Jonathan Drouin looks good to go. Ryan Lindgren, maybe the only one with a question mark.
Yeah, and Jared Bednar said today that Manson and Lindgren were good to go for game 1. So I have a little bit of hesitancy around it because he did not take full practice up until today, just 24 hours removed from game 1. So I'll believe it when I see it, but it was encouraging too that Malinsky and Middleton were the guys that were out on the ice kind of extra late. So I'm curious to see, honestly, what the back end looks like for game 1 tomorrow. But I do have a confidence that Lindgren is an option because Jared Bednar said as much.
The Avs started practice when they were first running through. Here's what the lines were, I guess. Let me start here. We saw these lines 2 practice days in a row now. So you had Lehkonen with McKinnon in the middle, skating with Netchis. You had Drouin with Nelson in the middle, skating with Nichushkin. Kiviranta, Coyle in the middle, skating with Colton. Then you had O'Connor with Drury in the middle, and they were skating with Parker Kelly. And then the extras is what we've been kind of referring to them as is Gabe Landeskog, Jimmy Vesey, and Miles Wood. And then for pairings, practice started Kale with Taves, Gerard with Manson, Malinsky with Johnson, and then Middleton and Lindgren were kind of the extras. But as practice moved along, those got kind of shuffled up a bit. And we saw Malinsky with Middleton, and we saw Lindgren with Manson, and then we saw Malinsky back with EJ, and then we saw Lindgren with Gerard. So Jared Bednar, I there wasn't a ton that I felt I could take out of today from D pairings the same way we could with forward lines.
Yeah, and I'll be a little sad if Malinsky doesn't play game 1. I thought that he earned it, even with the lineup, in full health. But it does feel like if Lindgren is truly an option, like he says he is, does Jared Bednar favor the experience of a player like EJ, who has impressively held it down, playing a much bigger role than compared to what his role was in Philadelphia, and to ramp it up so late in the season and just kind of be thrust into big minutes? I'm really impressed with how EJ's handled himself, but I will be a little bit sad because I thought Malinsky earned game 1, but it's a good problem to have that you have so many defensemen to choose from.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if, in the same way that we're talking about a Kiviranta who has done all of the right things and everything asked of him, this is just a good problem to have when you have so many healthy, good NHL players to choose from.
No, you're totally right. And there's a comment that just came in here. It says, if Gabe isn't in, I think it's because Bednar doesn't think he improves the lineup. In that case, how can he possibly improve from day to day? I wouldn't take it that way at all if Gabe doesn't play tomorrow. Listen to the comments that Jared Bednar just made of he's getting close. He's getting close. He's getting better. There is, look, we just went on this whole thing about, he's still getting better. There's going to be rust or excuse me. We went on this whole thing about how he's still an elite player at his core. But it is still 3 years in between playing hockey, and there is still conditioning, timing, pucks hitting his stick the right way. Jared Bednar, you asked a great question today about Pete DeBoer and the chess match.
Don't think I'm done with you, Jared Bednar. You may have gotten off easy this time.
But, that's one of those things, too, where if game 1, Jared Bednar does not, and this changes a little bit, obviously, in the playoffs. Jared Bednar does not assess his team based on the result. Obviously, in the playoffs, all that matters is the result. But the Avs could win tomorrow, and 3 of the 4 lines could play great. Jared Bednar is going to dissect what it was about the not the 4th line, but the line that he didn't like, and what could they do, and how can they improve that, and what can we change about it? Where can we mix things up? And that's where you're going to see, again, I go back to 2022. You had Andre Burakovsky and Alex Newhook sitting on the shelf at times, and Jared Bednar wanted to rotate them in. As Gabe Landeskog's conditioning gets back to where it is, as guys get tired, bumped, bruised, beat up, Gabe Landeskog is going to draw in, and he's going to be able, you would hope if you're the Avs, to keep elevating his game, keep getting better. The timing is going to get better. The conditioning is going to get better. All of that. And so that's where he draws in if he's not in tomorrow. If he's not in tomorrow, it's because Jared Bednar saying, look, we had a group that did great for us coming down the stretch post deadline all season. We're going to reward that group. Joel Kiviranta scored 16 goals. And hey, it's not going to hurt for Gabe Landeskog to get 2 extra days of practice.
Yeah, I think going back to the Cup team is such an important example too. You did see a rotation of Newhook and Burakovsky and Abe Kubel and Nico Sturm. And some of that was based upon availability because of health. And other times it was, trust and feel. And there is a different feel that Jared Bednar wants from his blue line from night to night. And sometimes it's, I just want them to be hard to play against. And he's perhaps counting on then the scoring punch really coming from the top, whether it's the top pair, the top six, and also now this newly improved depth, lines 1 through 4. Maybe he's not expecting then the second and third pair to be the ones providing the offensive punch, but a physical edge and a grit that makes them difficult to play against. And when I look at what Dallas does well, I could see the value in having that and having the back end constructed in that way. And I do think too, like with Malinsky's shot and his puck moving ability, his speed, that is going to be something that can have a need in the series that, we'll see it addressed on a need case by case basis.
Yeah. And, there may also, there's two other things. There may also be a, hey, let's get us settled into this series and then we'll see what we want to do lineup wise. There is also, and Jared Bednar never shies away from matchups, but there is also the home games. You're going to get last change. You can maybe shelter Gabe a little bit more if you feel he needs sheltering as he gets ramped back up. So there's a lot of reasons, but all of this just keeps coming back to, you're going to have a quality defenseman who's sitting out game one. You're going to have quality every night NHLers that are sitting out game one. 3 of them. Jimmy Vesey, I know, has had some in and out of the lineup stuff in his career, but Miles Wood, Gabe Landeskog, Jimmy Vesey, more or less, like these are every night NHLers, and they're all going to be sitting on the shelf. You're going to have Sam Malinsky or Eric Johnson or potentially Ryan Lindgren if he's not quite ready, sitting on the shelf. You're going to have good players waiting in the wings here, and it's the reason the Avs built this team the way they did. Megan, as we start to wind down, I want to get into the head-to-head. How do these teams line up head-to-head? Do a little bit of side-by-side comparison heading into game one. But I do want to first remind you about our new partner, our new friends over at Accurate America. You never know when or where the hail will hit when the summer storms come. Today's a great example, Megan. It's not necessarily hailing, but just the unpredictability of the weather. And the last thing you want is to be caught scrambling when it does. So make sure you're calling before the storm. Call Accurate America. They'll partner with you and navigating insurance and provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling. Also, their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. So as long as you're there, they are going to guarantee the work they did on your roof. Don't scramble last minute. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF before the storm. That's 303-900-ROOF. Let's do this, Megan. Let's wind things down on the pod today. No Jason Robertson, no Miro Heiskanen to start, but as you pointed out off the top, this is still a very good Dallas Stars team with a lot of depth, with a lot of players who play really well against the Colorado Avalanche. Where do you want to start here?
Yeah, let's look side by side with their top 6, in particular, a top 6 without a Jason Robertson. And Dallas is still tricky because their top 9, I think, fluctuates. So you could sell me on Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, Mikko Rantanen as a top line. You could sell me on Granlund, Hintz, and Dadonov as a top line. And then somewhere in there, whether it's a second or a third line, is Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin. That's my projected Dallas lineup. And it really changes things to not have Robertson in the top 6 in the side-by-side. One, because of how highly I think of Jason Robertson and also his efficacy against the Avs in particular. I do think that whatever line Jamie Benn is on is a difficult line to play against. And so if that's like a top line matchup, that's where I really want to see playoff Nathan MacKinnon take form, because I think playoff Nathan MacKinnon is quite difficult to play against. So I'm curious, if that's like a Lehkonen, MacKinnon, Netchus matchup, this is where I really want to challenge Netchus to elevate his game to be more of a difference maker in battling for pucks. I think he obviously has the playmaking ability, his versatility to working alongside MacKinnon, and the speed to pose a problem for Dallas's top 6. But I think that's where the Avs will be challenged is there's going to be gritty players that hold them accountable. And the way that the Avs like to create is using their speed. So they'll have an advantage there to some extent. But I think that Dallas will try to be aggressive in their coverage and gap up on players quickly. And so they're going to need to win some battles too, no matter what. That's going to be a requirement in this series. And so that means Netchus is going to need to come up with pucks. In addition to Lehkonen, who we already know does that, McKinnon, he's going to have to take McKinnon playoff form and come up with pucks in battles too. That's where Nichushkin in the top 6 for the Avs is a huge difference maker as well. Yeah. And that's where I think Jonathan Drouin's game has improved as well. And then Brock Nelson, a player that I think quietly, especially just because of his size and reach, can win pucks that way. But that's sort of where I'm looking at this matchup. I think the Avs have the scoring punch edge because of the skill that exists within their top 6. But I think, if it's a Mason Marchment and a Jamie Benn in Dallas's top 6 to start this series, they're going to make it a little bit hard for the Avs.
Well, here is the one area that I am looking at, as you're mentioning the top 6 in particular for the Avs. If Miro Heiskanen is not available for the entire series, and you no longer have Chris Tanev, for as highly as I think of Thomas Harley, I think the Stars might have a hard time containing the speed that top line is going to provide from the Avs. If you don't have Chris Tanev, who really made Nathan McKinnon's life difficult last year in the playoffs, if you don't have Miro Heiskanen, who is one of the few skaters in the league that you can maybe even put near Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon. And I just think that if they don't have that on the back end, Dallas and Pete DeBoer is going to have to really come up with a game plan to try to slow a line that has Nathan McKinnon and Marty Netchus on it down. And I think that's where the Avs are going to be able to take advantage. But I like what you bring up about, I'm just looking at this top 6 for the Avs as you just laid it out. Lehkonen, McKinnon, Netchus, Drouin, Nelson, Nichushkin. There's 2 players on each of those lines that are just really, really hard to play against.
Yes.
Nathan McKinnon, Arturi Lehkonen, and then Brock Nelson, Val Nichushkin. That's not me taking anything away from Drouin and Netchus. That's just not really their game. Like, the heavy playing on the wall, physical, right, engaged. And again, I was just on the radio right before we started this, and I was asked, like, what is it about Marty Netchus? Why has he struggled in the playoffs in the past? And I talked a lot about the way that Carolina not necessarily deployed Marty Netchus, but the way that they just kind of use their roster in general. And the minutes are a lot more evenly distributed. And, they don't really have a star. It's kind of a, by committee type thing. And I just said, I don't think Marty Netchus has ever really been put in a situation where he's going to go out there and he's not that player. Like, he's not I'm going to go out and take over and dominate. There's not a lot of those players in the NHL, and Marty Netchus isn't one of those, and that's all right. He's playing on a line with maybe the best player in the league at doing that. And I think he's going to get an opportunity to eat here a little bit playing next to Nathan McKinnon. And I'm with you. I want to see him take his game to another level, because I think there's going to be some room out there for him, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on Nathan McKinnon. And I think for the first time in Marty Netchus' career, he's going to have the opportunity to kind of slide under the radar and be highly effective.
Yeah, because you can already envision Lehkonen and McKinnon playing in the dangerous areas, greasy below the goal line, because we've seen that from both of those players. But in order to match what those players are doing to accomplish the opportunities that they'll be creating from the dangerous areas, Netchus has to be up to the challenge as well. And I do think it's interesting in talking about how it might be difficult for Dallas to contain the Avs, because when I reflect on games and things inside games that the Avs have done well against Dallas this year, it's blue line to blue line.
Yeah.
Dallas will thrive in transition, because if they have a chance to set up in your own end by beating you with speed into your own end, that's when you have players like Matt Duchene flying under the radar. Now Mikko Rantanen is going to also impose himself at the Avs net front, which feels terrible to say. So don't give them that option. Defend your blue line starting through the neutral zone. And honestly, this is an area of Drouin's game that I think he's improved so much that if they're working as a collective 5-man unit, now taking into account what the Avs have going on with the back end, which is going to be a huge advantage in this series, that's where I think they can make things difficult. And similarly, if they defend their blue line well, they can turn that into a transition opportunity the other way and use their speed to suffocate Dallas in a way that they can't contain. And that's where I think it gets interesting, because the more time that Dallas has to set up in the Avs end, the more dangerous it gets. I know that's true of any team, but particularly with Dallas, they have threats that will sneak away from the play and appear within it, and now there's a puck in the back of the net. And so that's what the Avs have to be especially attuned to, but also just eliminate the opportunity for them to try for second and third chances. That starts with good blue line coverage, but also then once inside your own end, you have to win battles and you have to break out the puck. And I think it's going to require all hands on deck, because this is where I think the Avs have maybe come up a little bit short, and how Dallas gets back in that return to Colorado Mikko Rantanen game that nearly slips through their fingers. It's all because the attention to detail lapsed for just a little bit in their own end. And so it's going to be important that their commitment to the details lasts the full 60.
Well, and I also think going the other direction, the transition game, I think, is arguably going to be even more important. If you are allowing Dallas, and again, we saw this last year in the playoffs for 6 games, and we see it every time the Stars play the Avs, especially under Pete DeBoer. If you are allowing the Stars to get their defensive structure set up, it is going to be hard for the Avs to move through the middle of the ice with speed. It's going to be hard for them to hit the blue line with possession of the puck like they like to do and get that zone established. The Avs got to be able to play quick off the transition as well, going back up ice and not allowing Dallas to get set up in that what can be at times a suffocating style of play, especially if, like you're saying, the Avs details slip and the Stars are able to get out to any kind of a lead. They make it really difficult on you for you to get back into games. And so the Avs have to be able to move quickly up the ice, go from defense to offense, and not allow the Stars to trap them there in the middle of the ice. I just think that when we've seen that in the past, if the Avs can, because the Avs are a better skating team than Dallas. The Avs can get to their game. If they can play with speed and they can get up the ice, they're going to make it difficult on Dallas, and they're going to take Dallas out of their comfort zone. Now, when you take Dallas out of their comfort zone, they can't play that heavy structure. That's where you can start to pick them apart. But you make a great point, Megan. They have a lot of weapons. Once they're set up in the zone, okay, maybe they can't fly up and down the ice with you the same way. Once they're established in the zone, Jamie Benn, very dangerous player. Mikko Rantanen, Avs fans know exactly what he can do from that right circle. Matt Duchene has a field day every time he plays against the Avs. Tyler Seguin, Wyatt Johnston, Rupe Hintz, like the list goes on. If they are established in your offensive zone, there's a lot of weapons that can burn you.
Yeah, and I think it becomes hard because you don't want to overcommit to any one threat. They all pose a deep threat. And so I think that's too where the Avs maybe abandon an assignment out of fear of one threat, but they actually just need to stick to their assignments and have trust that their teammate who's supposed to be covering that guy has got it. They just need to have full trust in each other, because the minute that they deviate from it is when they rotate out of position and guys get left unattended and they get dangerous, because there are a lot of threats, to your point. And this is where I think the Avs, because of their depth, they're pretty solid in what I think they'll be able to do together in their own end to defend well, because I do look at Mackenzie Blackwood, who by every account is the starter for this series.
Yes,
and
he is. No
I have full
questions.
confidence in him. I know that he doesn't have playoff experience under his belt, but I'm still deeply impressed with what he's done this season in net for the Avs. And where he has struggled the most has been with rebound control. So this is where it's important for the Avs to disallow second and third attempts by clearing the net front and getting sticks in lanes so that these chances aren't even reaching Mackenzie Blackwood in the first place and creating rebounds, because the Avs have the 4th fewest unblocked shots against in the league at 5v5. And I was talking the other day, Mackenzie Blackwood, among the goaltending tandems around the league, Avs allowed like the 3rd most rebound opportunities. And so this is an area of their game for them to clean up. And I think defensively, when you start looking at the analytics, the Avs are very strong defensively. So I don't want this to sound like a criticism of them. It's just why those details will be extra important, because it added up with some goals, against Dallas this year. So it's going to be important for them to button that up.
Yeah, well, I was gonna go defense first, but then goaltending. But we're already in this room, so let's talk about Mackenzie Blackwood versus Jake Ottinger, and then we'll wrap things up with how these back ends stack up. Yeah, obviously a lack of experience, to your point, from Mackenzie Blackwood, but I think that there is a level of that where the group has so much confidence in him that he can maybe even use that as like a, hey, I know there's people out there that are questioning my ability in the playoffs. Let's go out and prove them wrong. And I do think that he's a great example of the team is going to battle for him because he's going to battle for them. And I just think there's a really nice relationship there. But on the other end, Jake Ottinger, one of the top goaltenders in the league, a great reputation around the NHL. But Megan, it has not always been pretty for him in the postseason.
For Ottinger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have such mixed feelings. I think highly of him as a goaltender, but there is something different about playoff performance specific. And it felt like round by round, you got to get a different goaltender out of Ottinger sometimes. And so I'll let Ottinger answer for how this will go for him, but I have a confidence in how it will go for Blackwood. And honestly, their numbers side by side are pretty comparable.
Mm-hmm.
But where I have a confidence in Mackenzie Blackwood is high danger situations. His high danger save percentage is really good around the league compared to Ottinger, and that's how I think the penalty kill, which has some really good players on it, has only been made better by Mackenzie Blackwood in a way that I don't think got enough credit. And so I think Blackwood is good in high danger situations, and that's going to be a lot of the playoffs. Every power play is going to have this point of emphasis around it. The man advantage is such a huge advantage in the playoffs.
Special teams battle.
Exactly. And I am going to defer then to Blackwood and the trust that he's built in being so good in those high intensity situations for the Avs when they had some off nights, but it was kind of papered over by Blackwood performances, especially when there was a bit of a goal scoring drought for the Avs, like around December timeframe, January timeframe.
Yeah. So this comment right here that says, I think they just have to pepper him with shots and not to get too cute with passing. The Avs have had a tendency to overpass at times this season, but that's where, when I look at this projected roster we've got, on each of these lines, you've got guys who are going to the net. And on the bottom two lines, you got multiple guys who are going to the net. Layered screens to the net, follow those shots to the front. It's how the Avs put 5 a game past Connor Hellebuck last year. And it's how you're going to get pucks by Jake Ottinger this year. Similarly to how the Avs probably feel about Mackenzie Blackwood, that, hey, we don't think that he should be getting beat on a clean look very often. It's the same thing with Ottinger. The Avs have found success against top-end goalies when they go to the net, they layer the traffic, and then they have sticks there finding loose pucks. And the way that these lines are constructed right now, you're going to have guys who are doing that on every single unit. And I think that's going to be a way that they can help break through on Jake Ottinger. Let's round this out looking at the defense here, Megan.
I was just going to add, in the last Dallas game, this was specifically a play that lines 1 through 3 tried on Ottinger, and it was going for the tip in play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, to your point, they have players that can establish themselves at the net front to try for this, and it does appear to be a weakness for Ottinger in particular.
It's a great call out, and it's something that we'll keep an eye on as this series goes on. Are the Avs getting there, and how's Jake Ottinger handling the traffic and the chaos around the net? Let's just say we're not accounting for Miro Heiskanen right now. I'm going off. Here's the 6 that are available to Dallas. My niece is calling me again, and I'd love to answer while we're here on the show. Should I do it?
She's adorable.
Should I do it? Okay,
I personally have no issue with this.
Hey, I'm working right now. I'm on TV right now, and I had to answer because I saw you were calling, but I'll call you back. All right. Bye.
Is she playing in the snow?
No.
Okay. I heard lots of crunching, like she was pulling a sled up a hill.
She calls me and she's always got like 15 different things going on. And she just always wants someone to talk to while she's just like doing whatever. That's my third call I've gotten from her today. Yeah.
Queen.
Multitasking queen, totally. So these are the 6 that are available to Dallas. We'll see how these pairings end up shaking out. You got Thomas Harley, Ilya Lyubushkin, Esa Lindell, Cody Ceci, Leon Bushel, and Matt Dumba.
Matthew.
Yeah, I don't know. Chloe messed me up on that. I like Esa Lindell. I like Thomas Harley. The rest of those are just kind of guys, Megan. And then you look at the Avs projected 6. Taves McCarr, Gerard Manson, Lindgren, Malinsky with EJ as your extra.
Their back end is very young. Sorry, Dallas's, to be clear.
Yes.
Bichelle and Thomas Harley, 2 young players. I think that's where it gets tricky is experience matters, especially when you're looking at how Jared Bednar seems to be building this projected defensive group for tomorrow night. There seems to be an attention to detail with experience that's being favored here. And I'm with you. It's not much of a conversation. I don't want to be disrespectful. It's just a huge hit. Like Esa Lindell's a good defenseman, but I think without Heiskanen in this back end, it becomes a trickier story. And we talked about Tano's impact when he was a part of the Dallas Stars for the series last year, and how difficult he is to play against. I actually look at the way the Avs built their back end this year as sort of very loosely modeled off of the significance of that. They did want to get a little bit meaner and deeper in their own end in that respect. And so that's where, players like Malinsky, who have a lot to offer, haven't fully rounded out that side of their game, though he's building onto it. And I think that's going to be a huge difference maker because at the top of the pair, it's no contest. Taves Makar, there's just no question about it. And from there, I just think the experience is going to win out. And I think there's also a little more skill upside.
I really do. And this is maybe even my final thought for today. In the same way that the 2020 loss to Vegas, or 2021, loss to Vegas, I think rattled the organization. I think last year's loss to Dallas did the same thing. And I think the team this year was built to beat the Dallas Stars. I think they got into that series last year in the second round. And obviously, Val Nichushkin and Devon Taves and O'Connor and Drew, injuries piled up. But I think they looked at that and said, we didn't have the team to beat them. We weren't deep enough. We weren't well-rounded enough to beat them. And I think that was a lot of what Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland set out this year to do is we got to build a team that can go. We think the path to a Stanley Cup is going to go through Dallas in the West. We got to get a team together to beat Dallas. And I think when you look at these lineups side by side, especially in the back, even add Heiskanen back into that, I think you still feel really good about the Avs decor relative.
I think people too looked at Lindgren at the time and it just didn't feel like the need was addressed the way people would have wanted it to be. But now there's an abundance of options on the back end, and we're feeling pretty good that, all right, maybe the Avs attacked this area of the lineup kind of aggressively, and they're pretty loaded up on D now, but we certainly feel grateful for it. And I look at even the response from the Vegas exit to the Cup winning team the next year. And I think that a lot of how they built the 2022 team was in response to Vegas and their depth kind of specifically. So I feel similarly that this is a bit in response to where they felt they lacked depth against Dallas in the series last year.
Yeah.
And I think that they were aggressive in how they attacked it. And that's why, yes, there is a big price to pay for Charlie Coyle and a big price to pay for Brock Nelson. But it's because they saw the value of depth across the lineup. And now I think that they've prepared themselves. And, at times it felt like, did they do too much? Like, did they give up too much to bring in these players? But I think we're going to really see why they had to give as much as they did to get as deep as they are now.
I'm with you. We've got so much content coming your way. We literally are going straight into a meeting right now to help make sure that we've got it all covered and all planned. We will be live about 2 hours before the game tomorrow from Dallas. And then we'll be live immediately after the game from American Airlines Center. And then that's going to be rinse and repeat for every game day. We're going to have off-day coverage coming your way. Anytime there is an availability for the Avs, the Stars, we'll be there. But this is it, guys. We are here. Avs Stars round 1 starts tomorrow. Myself and Megan will be on the ground in Dallas, bringing you guys every last minute. That's going to do it. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. John back behind the glass again today. Give it up for John again in the chat. John. But can't wait, guys. This is going to be great. Best time of year. It all starts tomorrow. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.
Bye.
See you, everybody.